Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram. Glory to Mother India, salutations to Mother India. It is such an honor, such a privilege to be addressing an audience, to be addressing a gathering that has come together to celebrate one of the greatest sons of Mother India, Swami Chinmayanandaji. India has been lucky that whenever we've needed it, we've been blessed with great souls of knowledge. And Swami Chinmayanandaji is certainly one of the greatest souls of knowledge that we Indians have been blessed with. And I want to thank Swami Tejamanandaji for inviting me here. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Now, when I was told about this, about the topic, I transform, India transforms, the first thought that occurred to me is that the Chinmaya mission has got the order exactly right. It has to be first I transform and only then India can transform. It cannot be the other way around. It cannot be India transforms and then therefore I transform. Now there are countries which work in that manner, in a top-down manner. India is not one of those countries. India works in a bottom-up manner. China, for example, is a top-down country. The top management in China decides and then it cascades down. In India, on the other hand, the people decide. And if a leader needs to get the nation to transform, he needs to take a lot more effort to carry the people along. And our greatest leaders have been leaders like that. Let me give you an example of China, so that you may understand how we are so different. Because I hear it so often these days, so many people saying, why can't we be like China? Which intrigues me often. So let me give you an example of China. I'm sure all of you have heard China had the Beijing Olympics, right? Recently, all of you have heard of that? And look, it was China, so the stadiums were ready many months before, the games actually began. It wasn't like our Commonwealth Games in Delhi, where the stadiums were being completed even as the sports activities were going on. But for the Chinese government, just organizing the stadium was not enough. They wanted Beijing to look good. So they trained their volunteers, which is understandable. But the Chinese government decided even that is not good enough. The Beijing citizens have to behave and look good. So it being China, they came out with a guideline. I'm not joking. They came out with a guideline for Beijing citizens. The guidelines are things like what the length of the handshake should be. They specified 3 seconds. Because anything less than 3 seconds is too unfriendly. Anything more than 3 seconds is too creepy, apparently. They had even come out with guidelines on clothes, the kind of clothes you can wear. Again, I'm not joking. So for some strange reason, the Chinese government had decided to ban the combination of white socks and black shoes. I don't know why. So that was a part of the guideline for the Beijing citizens. Now, if I can just have a guess from the audience, what do you think the Beijing citizens did when the Chinese government came out with these guidelines? What do you think they did? They followed the guidelines. The government said no white socks, no black shoes. Fine, no white socks, no black shoes. What do you think would happen if an Indian government had come out with a guideline like this? तुमने बोला सफेद मोजे नहीं पहनो, मैं 1 साल तक सफेद मोजे पहनूंगा. That's the, yeah, you can applaud for yourself. This is the Indian way. We are by our nature a rebellious people. That's who we are. We are a passionate, freedom-loving people. Our ancient gurus, our ancient rishis understood that. So the kind of philosophies that they expounded for us took our innate culture into account. In ancient Sanskrit, for example, there is no translation for the English word blasphemy. The concept doesn't exist. And since the concept didn't exist, The word didn't exist. We were always driven by individual passions. Now, the problem in this conversation often, and it happens sadly in modern India, is that when we are too individualistic and we are driven only by our individual rights, but not by our individual duties. There are two sides, right, to being individualistic. It's not just about your rights, it's also about your duties. It's your duties to your Swadharma. There's a great example that one can speak of from ancient times of how one should follow your Swadharma, and if you can actually take charge of your own karma, of your own Swadharma, how you can transform yourself and hopefully transform many people around you, and the great people transform even the entire country. A long time ago, many millennia ago, I believe our civilization has been around for at least 5,000 years, maybe more. But many millennia ago, there was this robber and a bandit called Ratnakar. He had this favorite place that he hung out in. Any travelers going by, he would rob them. He may even kill some. But he was a very good family man. He did it all for his family. He used to rob, he used to kill for his family. One day, when he was at the highway, he ran into Narad Muni. Now, Narad Muni had a very different reaction to Ratnakar. Because normally, Ratnakar was used to people behaving either with fright towards him or wanting to fight. Whereas Narad Muni was not frightened, but he didn't even want to fight. He was just calm. And Ratnakar was intrigued. He asked him, why are you reacting this way? And Narad Muni asked Ratnakar, have you thought through what you are doing? And why you're doing what you're doing? He said, I have duties to my family. And if I have to rob and kill, to feed them, to take care of them, I'll do that. That's my duty. So he said, then you're committing all these sins, and all these sins are being weighed upon onto your soul. Do you think your family will share that sin with you? Because you're doing it all for them, right? Ratnakar said, yes, of course they will. I'm doing it for them. He said, why don't you go and ask them? He said, nice try. I'll go to them and you'll run away from here. He said, no, I'm giving you my word. I'll be standing here, I'll be waiting for you. Go ask your family. Will they share your sins with you? So Ratnakar went back to his family. What do you think his family told him? Spot on. Applause for the woman here. His family said, they're your sins. But he said, but I'm doing it for you guys. He said, they said, it's your duty to take care of us. How you take care of us is up to you. You figure out your own Swadharma. And Ratnakar learned a very important lesson that day. That only he can control his own Swadharma, no one else. And he has to take charge of his own Swadharma, his own personal Dharma. And unless he does that, forget about transforming the world. He won't even transform himself. He went back to Narad Muni and he learned from Narad Muni. Who do you think Ratnakar transformed into? Applause again. Knowledgeable audience. He became one of our greatest rishis ever, Maharishi Valmiki. He composed the original Ramayana. We learn from him even today. He didn't just transform the India of his time, he continues to transform India even today through the story that he wrote, because he took charge of his own Swadharma. And that's the challenge that I think the Chinmaya mission has thrown to all of us and to all Indians, that we have to take charge of our own Swadharma. Unless we can transform ourselves, how can we even hope of transforming the country? Now, the first question that arises, of course, in this, I'll probably end with this, is that you're giving me an example of Maharishi Valmiki. I'm just plain old me. What am I going to do? Valid question. Maharishi Valmiki is, a god amongst men. What can we do? We are ordinary people with ordinary swadharmas. Let me give you an example of an ordinary person with an ordinary swadharma, me. A transformation, a small transformation that happened with me in 2010. My first book was released in 2010, The Immortals of Meluha. And before that, I hadn't interacted with anyone in the publishing world at all, ever. I'm a voracious reader. I love reading. I read at least 4 or 5 books every month. But I'd never interacted with anyone in the publishing world. As most of us readers are. It's only when you're a writer that you interact with them. Those days, there weren't that many literature festivals around. Today, there's a lit fest everywhere. So I remember my book was released in early 2010. And around late 2010, I was invited to a lit fest in Kovalam, in Kerala. And those days I was still working. I was working at my banking job with my first 2 books. So I had little free time. I had to go on a Sunday morning, come back on a Sunday evening. And I remember I was very nervous. The publishing industry, many of the seniors, at least I had an impression, they have a reputation for being very arrogant, very supercilious. They're all from, Lutyens, Delhi. They speak English better than the British do also. And I come from a humble family. So I must admit, I was actually very nervous. And it was early in the morning, I think maybe 5:30 a.m. I put up a Facebook post. It's the first lit fest I'm attending in my life. I'm very nervous. I was going that morning, coming back in the evening. And then I got into a taxi. And I received a Facebook response from a friend of mine called Mirabelle Dacuna. She's a very, very devout Shiv Bhakt, a very devout worshipper of Lord Shiva. And Mirabelle told me there's no need to be nervous. And she sent this link to me of a song. It was a song by this singer called Vikram Hazra. It's called Om Namah Shivaya. I heard the song in the taxi while traveling to the airport. And I started crying. And then there was this flood of positive energy into me. Because the thought that occurred to me is, मेरे साथ शिव जी हैं यार, जैसे आना है आ जाओ, मैं संभाल लूँगा. But the story carries on. I took the flight to Kovalam, and my attitude had actually become positive. And I went up on stage and I realized that actually the audience was not that bad. They weren't arrogant and rude. They were actually very warm and friendly. Now, if you think about it, if I had gone in with that negative attitude, that, oh, these guys are all these elite people, they'll be arrogant with me, I may have actually triggered that kind of reaction. But I went in with a positive attitude, and the audience was warm and friendly with me as well. It was a small transformation that occurred in me, and there was a transformation in my interaction of the world as well. It's a small lesson that I learned from that episode, that actually it's all up to us. There's no point blaming the world. There's no point saying this one is that way, this one is that way. If you can transform yourself, you might find that even the world around you transforms as well. And if there are enough of us doing that, with Lord Shiva's blessings, India will transform too and become the great nation that we are capable of becoming. Thank you so much.